I like a nice casual. Hey, how's it going, fellas?
Sure.
Welcome to the SmeshCast. Welcome to the SneezeCast. I'm your host, Noah.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the SmeshCast. It is Smesh Sunday. I am Roie. We've got Noah beside me, and we're missing Adam today, unfortunately, but the show rolls on. The show must go on, and let's roll to the main event. Oh, we just lost Noah. Oh,
wait.
He's back.
I'm back.
Well, let's move and start off on the main event of last night's card. We had Holm taking on Roie. Holm with a clear-cut 5-round decision victory. It was never really in question. Aldana could never come anywhere near her, honestly. I didn't think Aldana at any point was threatening Holly, as Noah's cat meows in the background.
Yeah, she is a noise box, so get ready for some extreme kitty cat action.
Awesome. I can't wait for it. So really Holm did what she does best, which is utilize her footwork, manage the distance, and use her crisp kickboxing to just do everything she could. And then at about halfway through the fight, she switched from being a kickboxer to being an MMA fighter. And the second she did that, she mixed in those takedowns. It was just the little bit of hope Aldana had at the beginning, it was taken away.
Yeah, it was gone. And, I can't imagine how long that hope lasted for in the fight anyways. I mean, she was thoroughly dismantled. Holm put on a great all-time performance for her. She, I didn't expect it to be nearly as exciting and fast-paced as it was. But, phenomenal performance by Holm. Really wish that she could have, really put a stamp on it and closed things off with a nice big finish. But she fought smart, she fought well, and she clearly dominated the entire time. She was never in danger, at all.
The one thing that strikes me about Holly Holm that's really, really interesting about her is that she's been around forever. Everyone knows that huge pinnacle of her career was at the very, very beginning, right? She was undefeated, I believe, at that point when she knocked out Ronda Rousey in that second round in Melbourne, Australia, in front of that huge crowd. So, I mean, ever since then, she was at that point, she was a pure kickboxer, and she was just using the movement to stop Rousey's takedowns. Now, she is a real MMA fighter, and she kind of reminds me in that sense a little bit of Alistair Overeem, where he's not just a kickboxer anymore, right? You can see now he's learning how to be both a kickboxer and an MMA fighter. He's learning to, for example, in that Rosenstrike fight, yes, he got knocked out at the last second, but if he knows that he's being outclassed on the feet, or if he doesn't think he necessarily is just way better than the guy on the feet, he'll take him down. And he knows how to use all of the game to go and get a win and use his whole veteran mindset. And that's what Holly's learning to do. She's also a little bit of a Uriah Faber, I would say, though, in the way that the UFC uses her. So again, her fighting style and the way that she's progressed is like Overeem, but she's like Uriah Faber in the way that she actually goes and is used by the UFC. So what I mean by that is when they need a big name, they throw in Holly Holm. If they see that they need a title fight with a big name that's going to sell numbers, that people are going to know, and that the person the contender always really has a chance to win it, that contender is going to be Uriah Faber, is going to be Holly Holm. They're that solid backup, and they're kind of floating between two divisions, right? Holly floats between 25 and 35. Faber goes between 35 and 45, or not, maybe not recently, but still, and so you'll see they're thrown into title fights really, really often. They might not win them anymore. Faber has won it in WEC rather, and Holly won it way back when. But they're getting the shots, and they're competitive. They're just not necessarily ever going to be the best in the world, but they can compete with the best in the world on any given night.
Well, except Overeem. No, I still have hope that he can be the best in the world.
Overeem I would never say he's going to be the best in the world. Again, I think he can beat the best in the world on some night. He can knock out Stipe. He can knock out Ngannou even if he get maybe. Ngannou has the iron chin, and he can but I don't think he can beat Jones. But I think Overeem could beat Ngannou and could beat Stipe on the right night. I don't think I would favor him in either of those
Jones.
nights, but he could.
Hold on, I want to go back to that. That you just put an interesting idea in my head.
Look, all those. I think
there's a fight I'd like to see.
I think the Jones win is much less likely. I'd give him I think he'd be a 500 to 1 underdog or something.
That's a pretty substantial underdog position. That is, I don't know.
I'd say
I don't know about that.
300 against Ngannou and plus 200 against Stipe. That's how I would handicap him.
I mean, do you not think that having just the general careers, breadth of experience as a heavyweight fighter, knowing, his own strengths, knowing his own control at that weight, I mean, I feel like there's something to be said for that versus John Jones, who's untested there.
But true, but Jones is as much of a veteran as you can get. Jones, right? He's been in every, he has done nothing but
I don't mean being just a veteran in general. Being a veteran of that weight, because at heavyweight there's so much variability, just like the different levels of control over your body of someone who's 265 versus someone who's 230.
That's true.
I feel like that experience. I feel like there must be something to be said for that.
No, you definitely raise a good point.
Body awareness.
Jones is the highest fight IQ in the UFC, in my opinion.
Yeah.
What did Overeem weigh in at his last fight? Is that Is that something we can find? Weigh in.
I can't imagine he's less than 250.
I think he might be around 250.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here. On September 4th is Vegas 9 weigh-in results. There we are. Main card. Overeem is 252.
Yeah.
Okay, so look, Jones, I think, is going to weigh in around 235, even up to 240. It's not that huge of a size difference. The only difference is, as you say, the experience at that weight, understanding how to use your energy at that weight. But again, I think Jones is such a professional. He's been in so many 5-round fights, all title fights. He has really just he has the highest fight IQ that we've ever seen in all of MMA. I think he'd find a way to do it. And I think that Jones has a tougher fight against Ngannou or Stipe than he does against Overeem, absolutely.
Really? I think that Overeem could give him a hell of a fight. I don't know how Ngannou could, because, I mean, I feel like that the Ngannou fight is somewhere where Jones' experience really could come into play, just given Ngannou's style is just that, rush forward, chin out, fist flying in the air, kind of, pardon me for a second. Hey, Venus, get the fuck out of there. Cat's climbing on the table trying to eat things. Bad,
well, the thing is, Ngannou, yes, he does. He might be at times very, very defensively irresponsible, but Jones's offense has really dropped off since he was a 23-year-old, right? Jones is not this dangerous put guys away guy anymore. Yes, he put down. The only guy he's put away is since his comeback is Gustafsson. And even that, Gustafsson was a little bit bad. Gustafsson just got taken down. He fucked up his leg already, so he just fell down.
Fallen off a little bit.
But nobody else has been finished by Jones ever since.
Mm-hmm.
Jones is not a finisher.
I wonder how much of that is the pressure of holding on, because we see this time and time again. People who hold on to the belt for a long time, they go to a very defensive style. They don't get as many finishes. They fight a lot more tactically and a lot more slowly. I wonder how much of that is the pressure of holding on to a belt, and whether or not Jones will be willing to, be a little more dynamic and throw a little more caution to the wind, when he's starting fresh at heavyweight and has an opportunity to build himself back again. I almost feel like maybe that motivation of that feeling of trying to build yourself back up, which is something that Jones really hasn't known since the infant days of his career. I wonder how much that plays a role into the fire that is lit under a fighter, and whether or not it's we will find out whether Jones is just a matter of the way that his training differs now, or just see just how strongly that title defense mentality plays into that tactical defensive slow style of fighting.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think the other thing that might weigh into it is age. I think just as you get older, you just aren't as You're just not going to make as many stupid decisions. You're not as risky.
You
now,
say that,
out of
but
the
we
cage,
did see Diego Sanchez last week.
But Diego Sanchez used to be an animal, and he's still not that animal he used to be, right? And
But
John
he's still
Jones
doing stupid shit like that fucking flying knee attempt.
Yes, but that's not risky to yourself, right? He's not about to get knocked out when he's doing that. What I mean is really he's not going for those crazy spinning back fists. I haven't seen John Jones throw a spinning back fist in forever. He's not going for he's just outside the cage he's just as fucking stupid. And just as impulsive and everything. However, inside the cage, he's a lot more composed. He doesn't take big risks. He's defensively sound. He's defense first. And if he gets a chance to hit you and do some damage, he's going to consistently pick you apart from the outside, but he doesn't go for anything that's going to put him off balance. He doesn't overthrow ever. He doesn't put himself out of position. He just stays in position and just picks you apart nice and composed and kind of boring.
I just think if he maintains that kind of steady defensive style he's been defending his titles with, I don't know how far that's going to get him in the heavyweight division until he potentially has that title. I mean, that's not going to win you. That might win you championship decisions when they err on the side of the champion. But
I don't think that's a thing. But I think the difference, though,
I mean, if you look at his last two fights as a light heavyweight champion, it's certainly a thing.
I don't think it was because of the champion. I don't think it's because of the champion thing. But what I do think, though, is going to make a huge difference at heavyweight. So I don't agree that it's because that the being the champion or not being the champion is going to make a difference towards the decisions. But what I do think is going to make the difference is the reach. When you fight a guy like Ngannou, who has essentially the same reach as Jones, he has lost his ability to post. That's what he does. John Jones posts. Yes. John Jones hand fights. John Jones uses that reach, and he can't use that reach against Francis Ngannou. And so that, I think, is going to be the big difference maker. And he does get clipped occasionally. And against Francis Ngannou, you can't get touched. And Jones has not gone for a takedown in forever. He might have gotten one or two against Reyes, but he barely held him down. John Jones is not a takedown artist anymore. I don't see John Jones taking down this big scary monster that Cain Velasquez couldn't take down or got knocked out trying to take down.
I don't think he could if he wanted to.
So I think that John Jones loses to Ngannou at heavyweight, if I'm being completely honest. I think it's a plus. I think I would put John at like plus 120 and Ngannou at like minus 130. And maybe that's the most I would give it to Ngannou, but I think it could be close, but I would lean Ngannou.
Yeah, let's see. I mean,
I
think Ngannou has a big risk of just you getting taken out before you can even showcase your skills. That's partially why I'd be more interested in an Overeem fight, just to start with. Two veterans, people who have extremely high fight IQ, who can really showcase what they have against each other. I think it would give us a better idea of where John Jones stands at heavyweight and what kind of fighter he is at heavyweight. Because again, Ngannou, it doesn't matter who you are. No matter what, you could be stopped in the first 30 seconds of the fight before you could even get started.
So basically what you're saying is that a win against Ngannou would answer a lot of questions about his capabilities at heavyweight, but a loss would not answer any questions. It'd just be like, if you won, it'd be like amazing, like you're the next real, you're the real.
It depends again if that's.
It'd be like, okay, yeah, but it was Ngannou.
It depends on whether that loss is in classic Ngannou fashion.
Yeah, where he clips him.
If it is, then if that were to happen, then I would also be willing to say that Ngannou is immediately ready for that fight against Stipe. He can.
He's ready. Oh, we know he's ready.
Yeah, we just don't know if it's going to end up the same way as last time.
No, we have completely sidetracked. We are miles away from Holm Aldana at this point. Do you want to jump back in there? I think we've gone pretty far.
This is what it's all about, man. This is what it's all about.
That's true. Do you have anything else to add about? I guess let's talk about just where Holm Aldana go. I don't really have anything else to add to the fight itself.
Yeah, I mean, listen. Do you want the technical breakdown? I don't know. Go watch The Weasel.
There you go. So I think Holly Holm. Where should you go? Where should she go next? I still don't know if we want to give her a title fight. Honestly, I know we're jumping ahead again. We're going a little bit sidetracked, but I would like to see Holly face GDR again. That'd be a great rematch.
I think that would be a great fight. That would be a great fight.
I don't think we want to give him either of them Amanda Nunes yet. They've both fought her pretty recently. Amanda has her next fight booked against Megan Anderson already for December. I think that could be a number one contenders bout unless we have anyone else that's really showing themselves in the 125, 135 divisions. I don't see anyone at that. Aldana, take some time off, heal up. We'll see what the division's at after.
Yeah, reconnect then. But yeah, I think Holm and GDR makes the most sense when I'm looking at the top 15. You're right. I don't feel comfortable throwing either of them in there with Nunes again just yet. I mean, God, Nunes really just throws a wrench into this whole, like, by all means, it makes sense. Like, I wouldn't have a problem if, like, in theory, if one of them were to face off against the champion again, but, like, she's just so overwhelmingly dominant. I can't, based on the performances that they both put on last night, they were great performances. I still don't see either of them.
I mean, dude,
even coming close.
Let's look at women's top 5. Okay, Raquel Pennington, no chance. Juliana Pena just lost last night. Aspen Ladd got knocked out by GDR. Holly Holm and then GDR.
Makes the most sense to me.
Who do we have to even hold a candle to Amanda? Forget threaten Amanda. No one is even fit to step in the octagon with this girl.
Here's what gets me with Amanda is she didn't, she wasn't always this way. She wasn't always a fighter who was just crazy, undefeated, walking around with this unbeatable stature like a Khabib. She was not always like that. She became like that. She worked very hard and became the greatest female fighter on the face of the earth. So that gives me a little motivation, and I would like to think that it motivates the fighters a lot more. That anyone could, in theory, just work hard enough and persevere and continue to pursue this, and they could end up being on top.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that GDR. I wouldn't say that Amanda's the perfect example for that, because she was already a top level. Yes, she lost to some girls. She wasn't the best, but she showed flashes of that. I think a better example of that would be, go back to last week, throw in Jan Blachowicz, right? No, whoever thought Jan was going to be a light heavyweight champion? We thought, okay, this guy's pretty good. Maybe he'll break into the top 15 if he's lucky. It's not the deepest division. Maybe he'll get top 10 even. And then he just kind of kept winning. And he was losing. By the way, he lost 4.
He's got a hell of a record.
Fights, he was 2-4 in his first 6 fights. And then he just figured his shit out and worked his ass off. And at age, 36 or something, 37?
Right.
He won it.
For Jan, I would give him more of that comparison if he continues to defend the title. And if he holds on to things, because again, when it comes to people with a lot of power, I mean, a fight's a fight. It's not whoever's best. It's whoever's best that moment of that night. So,
yeah, but how many wins? With how many wins did Jan have to win to get to the point where he could face for the championship?
Sure, but a title defense is much different than any other fight.
But he got to that point. I think Amanda always showed flashes, and she's also in a more shallow division than Jan is. Even though you might say light heavyweight's a shallow division, it's nothing near women's featherweight.
Yeah, I'm looking at that.
Women's featherweight literally doesn't have a rankings. Okay, there aren't enough girls.
Oh, featherweight. Yes, no, there is no.
For there to even be a ranking system. Okay, you just can't compare it.
Whenever someone wants to fight,
the greatest of all time among 10 girls isn't as impressive as being the light heavyweight champion, in my opinion.
But I think we've lost track of the comparison I was ultimately trying to make. Is that
you can work hard.
Some people are born champions from the beginning, like John Jones, Khabib, Israel Adesanya. They are just people that the only one of those guys that have really faced serious adversity is Adesanya in his kickboxing career. And, this is all a long time off. He has 100 wins now. He was born a champion regardless. Some people are like that, and some people work hard. And, Jan is another one of those. I still put Nunes as somebody who worked until she became a champion, until she was better than everyone else. It can happen. Nunes walks around like she is impenetrable, and up to this point, she's given us all the reason to believe that she is. But it's no reason to be discouraged. I think that GDR or Holly Holm, it still has a lot of room to improve and work and eventually, possibly take and hold that belt. So wait and see.
I'm not so sure that either of them will ever beat Nunes, but yeah, it's possible. But let's keep it moving because we've got a lot of news to talk about, and we've barely moved off of the first fight. Our co-main event, we had Yorgan De Castro against Felipe. Carlos
Yes,
Felipe,
we
I
did.
believe.
Yes, we did.
That was a weird fight. I mean, it was pretty heavy, slug heavy for the first couple rounds. And
it was a weird last round.
And
the rest of the fight was fine.
Oh, De Castro for the last 2 minutes straight just pushed him against the fence, waited there. He'd be yelled by the referee to get going, get moving, and then he'd push him against the fence again, and they'd be separated, and he'd push him against the fence. He just wasted the last 2-3 minutes. He was so exhausted.
Absolutely.
Weird fight.
I think it was scored. What was it? A 30-27.
I think it was 30-27 on 2 cards and 29-28 on 1.
Yeah, I think I gave round 2 to De Castro.
Yeah, you could do that.
I think his power strikes were, very effective at that point. Although Felipe did strike me the whole time as the better boxer.
He had better speed.
Yeah, for sure. He was coming in there with some serious, it felt like they both had a chip on their shoulder going into that one. And Felipe was just straight up, he was being a dick. It was great. He was smiling. He was, showboating to his face, saying, you're not shit. And now I'm going to bop you. And goddamn did he do that. And goddamn did he did. And Yorgan De Castro, I got to wonder, how many losses is he going to take in the UFC? I mean, he has some spectacular knockouts, but a guy who's just going to.
How many losses does he have?
Yeah, he has 2. He has 2. This and what was the Greg Hardy? But I mean,
yeah, but before that he'd win every fight.
And he'd win in quick fashion. But if you're a heavyweight and you have the physique that he has, and you're just going to tire out in the 3rd round and just that was one of the most ridiculous third rounds in a fight I've ever seen.
Start looking at changing things up, but I think looking into this, he was what 3-1 in the UFC.
Yeah, but I think if he fights like this again, if he stalls for an entire round, what's Dana gonna think?
No, ultimately that's what's important. Thinking about changing what he's doing, but I think up until this point, this is the fight that tells him he has to start changing things. I think before this, you weren't at that point yet.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I just think for it's early in his career. He's still got time to improve. But he was,
he's old. He's like 35, 36 already.
Yeah, but I mean, when you're in heavyweight, I mean, as long as you don't have a great deal of damage, you can make that career stretch a little longer. But he was thoroughly outclassed tonight. Last night, maybe he can change things up, work a little bit. But I mean.
Look, he's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere.
He's certainly not. He can fight as long as he wants. Yeah, but
he'll put some wins together and make some money.
Try and make it exciting for me. I mean, it was a fun 2 rounds, and then that 3rd round was, in a word, I don't know, disgraceful.
Look, no, it happens. This isn't a new thing. The guy has to work on his cardio. And look, the guy's just not he's not elite. I don't think they should have put him in a co-main event. They had to. They don't have much name power right now. They're running a bit low on fighters, and that's fine. It is what it is, and I don't think it's really worth discussing just because I don't think he's. I know this is really disrespectful, but I don't think he's a fighter that's going to go anywhere that is really worth spending a long conversation on the guy.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's just not there.
Fight definitely answered that question.
He's just not elite, and that's okay. He's a good guy.
Yep. Felipe, I like though. I'm excited to see who he goes up against next. He had
I think they put up a good idea on the broadcast. They said tied to Ivasa would be fun.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that could be interesting. Break into that top 15. Yeah, he had a great jab. It was, some very solid boxing. Interested to see where he takes those, quick, heavy hands next.
Yeah, I think Felipe is a fun guy to watch, and I still don't think he's going to be that incredible either. But he's a fun guy to watch. Put on good fights. Heavyweight's not that deep, and you have a lot of these guys, and that's okay.
Yeah, listen, hey, if you're not going to be elite, at least he's a funny dick. It's fun to watch.
Exactly. All right, we spoke a little bit about this earlier in terms of what should happen next, but we can just very briefly mention GDR scoring a beautiful third round
Oh,
guillotine submission on
phenomenal.
Juliana Pena.
Phenomenal. She
Her
put her out,
first,
right?
she choked her asleep, and that was her
Hmm.
first career submission victory. From if I'm correct, I believe it is.
Yeah, I think she mentioned that. Yeah.
So that was the kickboxer gets a choke, as you say. Don't leave your
Hmm.
neck out there. I mean, it shows that GDR is evolving a little bit. We saw in Amanda Nunes that she had zero takedown defense. Now she has some takedown defense, and she has that submission threat. I still don't think either of those are enough to deal with the BJJ and the takedowns of Amanda.
Yeah, she's gonna need some work, but she's
hey,
getting there.
keep this up. Good movement. Good movement. I think she will earn a title shot with a win over Holly Holm. I think that will be a number one contender.
I don't think it makes sense to not give her that title shot, even if it seems like a foregone conclusion.
Actually, what if Amanda has her December fight against Megan at 145. 135 doesn't have a challenger and hasn't had a challenger in a little while. Amanda just had a baby. What if Amanda takes some time off, keeps the 145 belt, relinquishes the 135 belt for a bit, let Holly and GDR fight for the 135 belt, and then come back in a year or so and take it back?
That's a very interesting. That's a very compelling story. I would like the sound of that. I don't know how eager Nunes is to let go of that belt. I mean, we'll have to see, but I do like that story. If I would like to see that. If nothing else, just to see a little bit more movement in those two in the either of those two divisions where Nunes reigns supreme. God, it always feels weird looking at the rankings and seeing no top 15 for featherweight. She's just Nunes is featherweight.
Technically, she'd become the first fighter ever to become double champ by moving down in division. She'll have given up the 135, so she'd be 145 still and move down to 135 for the belt. Now, at the same time, she'd have already been 135 champ, so it doesn't really mean as much, but still. The other option is, of course, to build up Valentina and say Valentina move up and fight for the 135 belt. That's the other option. Actually, what would be really cool, what if you had Valentina come up and fight like Valentina against Holly Holm at 135? That's a fun fight. Interesting. That's a good fight. I like that.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I have actually seen, for all the time that I've spent watching the UFC, I'm struggling to think of a Shevchenko fight that I've watched. I feel like when was she? I don't remember if I caught that card.
Where she knocked her out with a head kick and left her out for like 5 minutes on the ground?
I've probably seen a highlight, but I don't remember if I've watched that card. I don't know if I've ever seen a Shevchenko card, because for the life of me, I just remember thinking, has she been inactive for like a while? Why haven't I seen her?
She's been quite active.
Maybe I've been out of the
maybe not in 2020, but in 2019 she fought like 3 times.
Yeah, she did fight at the beginning of this year. She fought, you know what? I probably missed that because it looks like she fought on like the weekend of my birthday.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Well, regardless.
And then last one was August of 2019, and over that summer, I would have probably been out to lunch when it came to these UFC fights.
Yeah, regardless, it's an interesting conversation to have. What happens at 135? Moving on, we had Charles Jourdain. That was a very, very good fight. He had a very fun fight.
Canada! Canada!
Man, what do you have to say about that? About the Charles Jourdain fight, man? He was just a killer in there.
Yeah, he was. I think I disagreed with the draw.
Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah, it was very weird. I think I gave Jourdain, if I recall, I'm pretty sure I gave him 2 rounds over
Koulibaly.
Yeah, the man was a wild man. I mean, I would just take the draw, and it's, I think, kind of ridiculous that it came out that way, but ultimately we know that if it's an exciting, dynamic fight with a controversial decision, usually people can recover from that, especially if it's like a wild fight, because who loves that? Dana. How many times have you seen Dana get up in front of the camera and be like, this decision was bullshit, we're not gonna fucking take this?
I I hate the fact that because they have a draw and nobody won, nobody gets a win bonus, and the UFC just saves a bunch of money.
Yeah, that is unfortunate.
Like both guys get paid less. Both guys get paid
really shitty to put that in the hands of the judges who arguably don't know what they're doing and are not qualified to be judging this sport. So I'm upset at that decision draw. I didn't care for it. But it was like, it's just such a shitty way to end such an interesting dynamic
I don't know,
fight.
both guys could have won that fight, right? I
think,
yeah,
arguably, sure.
I don't know who I would have said won that fight, to be completely honest. So I'm almost like a draw is almost deserved in terms of how they fought. They actually did kind of match each other. I just hate the fact that no one gets paid. That's what I really resent. Yeah. But it was a great fight. Both guys put on a really, really good performance and a really good account of themselves. Yeah,
I could always be biased scoring in favor of the Canadian, but I think I gave him 2 rounds. Interested in following both of their trajectories because, God, I mean, how could you just it's a good old fashioned featherweight fight. You can't go wrong.
Yeah.
Fast hands, potential knockout power. I mean, God, what's not to like?
Yeah, I fully agree. The last thing I want to talk about on this card, we had a comeback, Carlos Condit getting his
true legend.
The true legend, the natural born killer, as they say, got his first win since 2015. Over what's his name?
Good job, Carlos. Good job, Carlos.
Good job, Carlos, over Court McGee. Now, honestly, look, Carlos looked good. He looked better than Court most of the time. He dropped Court in that first round pretty hard with that big left hook, or right hook rather. But if I'm being completely honest, I don't see him going anywhere. I don't see him putting together a big string of wins over top guys. I don't see him ever competing against for the welterweight crown and being that savage he was against Robbie Lawler. He hasn't been the same since. So,
but
yeah, good win. But I'm kind of still ready to call it quits on Carlos Condit.
I'm not willing to call it quits. I think it's different for me, like my perspective on a guy like De Castro, who I also don't think is going to go super far. What it comes down to me at that point is the entertainment value. And Condit was fun to watch. He was moving, he was quick, he was throwing some very fun strikes. The way that guy flows, he's moving like a river. It's just very hypnotic to watch the way that he, like, the kind of outlandish way that he moves and that he throws. I've really enjoyed watching it. And God, I mean, the guy obviously has earned legend points. I mean, if you look at who he's fought, it's a who's who of UFC. I mean, you've got guys like, I'm just looking at his record now. You've got like Dan Hardy, Nick Diaz, GSP, Jake
Noah,
Shields. Like,
Noah,
this guy's a true legend.
It's true, and that's my problem with this is the difference between Yorgan De Castro and Carlos Condit. Yorgan De Castro is brand new to the UFC. There's 2 main differences. One, he hasn't taken big damage, and B, he doesn't have a legacy he's trying to go and protect.
You know, I'd argue that
he's been beaten up, but we all know he has never been the same since those Robbie Lawler fights. He was hurt bad in both those fights. He's never been the same. Neither is Robbie Lawler. But on top of that, he's fought all these amazing guys. He has this big legacy. Do you really want to see him fighting the guys outside the top 15, taking losses and becoming BJ 10? Carlos Condit this is his first win since 2015. It's 2020 right now, Noah. It's been 5 years. This legend has been doing nothing but losing.
And now he's won.
And becoming the guys no one remembers who BJ Penn was anymore. No one remembers when he was a top.
I think you're underestimating
on
that.
The planet. But the people that join nowadays don't know this shit. And so that's what they're going to remember from Carlos Condit. Same thing with Anderson Silva. Like, the longer you fight once you shouldn't be fighting, the longer you take L's to lower and lower ranked guys, the more you put a stain on your career.
Okay, I'll be honest. Anyone who looks at like someone with legend credentials, who then like finishes their career in losses and just like, oh, fuck them, they're like nothing. They're a fucking idiot. Who gives a fuck about the opinion of a fucking moron? That's first off. Second off, I wouldn't even argue that Condit has not taken very much damages in his career. His 13 losses, he only has one knockout. His last those 5 losses, though, that was a decision, submission,
look at the
decision,
Lawler.
submission,
Do you know the
submission.
Lawler fight? Do you know the Lawler fight?
No, I didn't watch the Lawler fight.
That is a legend. One of the most legendary fights of all time. It was a decision win in the end by Lawler, but it was one of those fights where it was like, think about Tony.
You leave a piece of yourself in the arena, blah, blah, blah. But he won last night. And it was a clear win, too. For me, it was a clear victory.
He beat Court McGee, who was also on the same part of his career. It's like saying, look.
Who cares? Let the man fight. First off, the guy is probably fighting just because he needs money. He needs money. That's what it comes down to with a lot of these older guys. These guys aren't millionaires. They need money. Second off, again, if you can win a fight, it doesn't matter if you're not going to break into the top 15 for me. If you want to fight, fight. The guy's a fighter. That's his calling in life. He's got nothing. What else does he have?
Diego Sanchez.
Sorry?
Why is he different than Diego Sanchez?
Because Diego Sanchez is taking substantial damage. Diego Sanchez Sanchez is also clearly delusional. He's also training with a con artist that is everyone can so transparently see that his training is being run by somebody who doesn't know what they're doing.
So
that's the difference. Diego Sanchez seems like a crazy person,
but Noah,
and Carlos Condit seems like he has it together.
He's always seemed like that. And if he trained with someone else, would you say he's okay then?
If he had a legitimate trainer who was in there, like, who could vouch for him and not be there conning him out of his money the whole time, very transparently, then yeah, sure. And I mean, here's the thing. Also, again, Condit won this fight unanimously.
Over who? Like,
so what? He doesn't need to fight crazy. Not everybody needs to like be the champion or crack it. Some people just can have a journeyman career, especially at the end of his career.
But Condit's not a journeyman.
So what? He can be now because he wants to fight.
Why is that what we want? Why do we want to turn legends into journeymen?
If he wants to keep going, he can. He
can. No one's saying he doesn't have the right to, but I don't think he should. That's what we're discussing, right? Same thing with Diego Sanchez. He has a right to, but I still think he should call it a career.
I mean, if he wants to keep going, I don't have a problem with supporting him and watching him, especially if he can still win fights. If there's fights out there for him to win, I don't have a problem. I just don't share your perspective. I just don't have an issue with him continuing and, doing the best that he can because this is what his life is. This is what he has. What else is there for him? He can be a waiter. He can these guys he probably doesn't have like a degree. He probably doesn't have any substantial training. I don't know what kind of long-term career experience he has while he's been fighting at the top of the UFC for most of his life. I mean, what else is there for him? You got to keep that in mind too.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know. I think we're going in circles at this point. I think we've gone over this conversation too many times as well. Let's move on to the news.
Damn it if it isn't good TV.
So we had a bunch of good interviews with Khabib and Gaethje this weekend, this week. We had, so I guess, let's start off with the Khabib interview. These were both about 30, 40-minute interviews over the phone with all sorts of media personnel. I don't know if you watched the Khabib interview. He just seemed very dark throughout, and to be honest, he didn't seem his usual self. He usually is pretty pan, maybe a little bit lighthearted jokes here and there. He seemed a bit more intense, if you can even say that about Khabib, than usual. And right at the beginning, everyone's seen the clip where he sent this journalist to hell. The journalist asked him what it's like training without his dad, and he said, "What? Do you have a dad? Oh, is your dad alive?
Yeah.
How would it feel to you if you lost your dad?"
It's just like I think for the first, it's something that is understandably a relevant question given the position that his dad had in his training regimen, but be a human being for 1 second and realize he lost and yes, that's also the big question. How many times does he need to be faced with this same question? That's, what, for any interviewer out there, watch interviews that previously happened with the person you're interviewing, so you don't look like an asshole and ask them the same questions again and again and again. God, it's not difficult. You have one job.
So,
but poor
yeah,
guy.
so he did seem darker though overall. I mean, other than that, no one asked him any follow-ups after that.
Good.
But he answered a lot of things in Russian as well, which is frustrating that they don't have a translator there available, or they have no one translating for you. They should do that. But in general, he spoke about how he's just going to do his usual thing, spam the takedowns. He can get stopped on some takedowns. He doesn't care. He's going to keep trying again and again. Eventually get him down and do what he does.
At this point, it just seems like he could just run on autopilot through a fight and just run shit. I mean, I think that there's obviously a lot going around. Like, this is like Gaethje is the guy who is going to beat Khabib. But like, if I were a betting man, which I'm not because I'm a coward, you never bet against Khabib. I mean, I couldn't even conjure an image of my head of Khabib's lying down unconscious on a floor. I can't even, like, that's an image that just is incompatible with everything that I have in my brain, that I can't even conjure it. So yeah, bet the house on Khabib because it's always the right choice. He can just go on autopilot and just like be like an animal based on instinct and just work, and he will win. So always.
He also mentioned though that Dana has what he says is something, quote, special planned for him afterwards. He doesn't know what it is. He says he doesn't want to hear about it. He doesn't want to think about it until after the fight. Noah, what do you think that special thing that Dana has ready for him is?
Well, ever since I read a certain comment on the MMA subreddit, I haven't been able to get this image out of my head of it's just Dana waiting in Khabib's hotel room after the fight, naked on the bed. That's the surprise.
Okay, moving on.
That's a surprise.
No, so I think it's the GSP fight. I think it's almost certainly the GSP fight.
I feel like it's got to be when it's something special.
I think it was going to be the Conor, the Ultimate Fighter.
But that's not happening.
Which is not happening.
Khabib doesn't want Conor anywhere near him.
I think it could be GSP, the Ultimate Fighter, though it does seem a bit of a short timeline, if I'm being honest.
It could be.
But I think it'll be the Ultimate Fighter, potentially.
I feel like it would be very difficult to make that happen behind the scenes without leaking any information. I mean, if that fight was in the works, I feel like something, even on like GSP's camp, somebody would leak that. And that's information that's worth a lot.
Big money.
I saw some like people wondering whether or not it's going to be not as big of a deal as we think it is, and it's going to be Abdulmanap being added to the MMA Hall of Fame. That would be very. That doesn't seem like something that's worth making a public announcement that like we have a special thing lined up for Khabib. But at the same time, I think that would be very meaningful for Khabib.
I think
they should do that regardless.
They should do that regardless. I don't think that's what they're talking about. That's a great idea, though. I think they should do that.
Mm-hmm. I think the GSP fight is best case scenario for Khabib, although that's a fight that's just very worrisome for me because, I mean, GSP is, in my mind, the greatest of all time of a certain era, because you have to preface the greatest all time is only within your era, as the great Mirko Cro Cop told us. And I mean, clearly, he came back and he beat Bisping, which, it's certainly no Khabib, but he beat Bisping. But it's an interesting story, but it's just like it has the potential of just being a Khabib fight, but faster. Because like it could be that GSP is just like not prepared, but you have to keep in mind that the story with Khabib that I don't know if a lot of casual fans really cue into is. When you look at the GSP and then you look at the career of Khabib hasn't really fought anyone who is on that same wrestling credential level.
Well, that's what we have Justin Gaethje for.
Himself. Yeah, and Justin Gaethje in himself, though, hasn't really, like, it's kind of like his secret weapon that everyone's thinking he's holding in his pocket. Personally, I mean, we
haven't
can
seen
only
him use it.
speculate until we see him use it and see if he can like hold a candle to Khabib. Everyone's holding in their mind like it would be a real movie moment if it's like, oh my God, he's been hiding it his whole time,
No,
but
he's
his
not.
secret power is
No,
revealed.
wait, hold up. Because he's not. The wrestling that Justin Gaethje is using is a completely different wrestling than Khabib. When you're talking about hiding it, that can't apply to Justin Gaethje because his wrestling is wrestling defense. Even he says, as a high school wrestler, when he was competing, he was a defensive specialist. He might not be a good takedown artist, but you cannot take him down. And so, hiding it, you can't hide your defense. Like if either people try to take him down or they don't. And if they don't try to take him down, he doesn't use it. And if they do, he does. He just hasn't had to use it before. We're not going to see him shoot for a double leg. I can guarantee that he will not shoot on Khabib.
So the question is whether Khabib is going to get him onto the ground.
How long can Justin Gaethje stop them is A, and B, how much will they gas Justin Gaethje out? Because if he gasses him out hard and then Khabib can take him down, then Khabib can do whatever he wants and Khabib him.
Right. So again, though, it just goes on to demonstrate that neither of these guys have had to face off against people with similar wrestling credentials in their weight class. Whereas GSP, if you look at his record, he was taking guys who were the Khabibs of their times in terms of wrestling and making them look like school children.
But there is no
couldn't
Khabib
even
of our
move
time.
him.
But Khabib is so much better than the Khabibs of their time, right? And he's so much better than the best guys in our time. Like there's such a gap between the second best wrestler in the UFC and Khabib.
Yeah, so that's why I said there is a chance that this could look like a Khabib fight, but faster. But keep in mind that GSP has been consistently training, consistently up to date on his wrestling. He is in phenomenal shape.
And will get eaten alive regardless.
Everyone follow this man on Instagram. He is going to make you feel so disappointed in your own flabby self.
It does not matter.
No, it doesn't.
He is in amazing shape.
But
he is in training. Khabib will Khabib him. It doesn't matter, dude.
I know, that's what I'm saying could happen. But again, we need to see what happens when Khabib goes against wrestlers of his own caliber. We'll see what happens with Gaethje. If he can't take Gaethje down, if he can't take him down, then it gives more credence to the possibility of GSP winning. Because I have no doubt that on the feet today, stand up, GSP's threat is way worse.
If he can't take Gaethje down, he won't fight GSP because he'll lose to Gaethje. But if he gets through Gaethje, I'm sorry, Gaethje's, in my opinion, a more dangerous version of GSP for Khabib. I'm not saying in general, he does not have the same fighting style. When you think of how GSP would fight Khabib, it's the same thing as Gaethje, where he just try to stop his takedowns.
GSP would shoot for the takedown a hell of a lot more.
I don't think GSP is going to shoot on Khabib.
GSP will shoot on anyone. GSP shot on the Khabibs of his day, and he has some of the highest takedown success rate in the entire UFC history.
All right. Well,
I'm not saying that he would be successful, but I think he would definitely work for it.
All right.
I mean, if anything else, GSP's in this to prove to himself that he could still be the best. I don't think that his own ego would allow him to not shoot for a takedown on Khabib.
It's possible. I think I guess we can have that conversation. Hopefully they book that fight and we can have a long debate on that.
Oh my God, Roie, the debates we're going to have around there, we're not going to be friends by the end of it because you're going to disrespect GSP too much.
I'm excited to tell you to go fuck yourself on numerous occasions.
That'll be the Canadian that we get onto our show to interview. We'll get GSP on there. Fucking Roie, I've not been I'm disappointed by your trash talk. Some shit like that. That's my GSP impression, everybody. Thank you very much.
On that Khabib talk though, there was talks as we recently found out. Dana announced that apparently they were working on doing a Conor Khabib The Ultimate Fighter season, and that was going to happen. He thought he was making movements on that, and then Khabib shut it down after Conor's leaked messages. Now, if I'm being completely honest, I call bullshit on all of this story. I think that
the whole thing.
I think it's possible that they were making talks with Khabib. We know Khabib shut it down. Mm-hmm. I don't think it was specifically because he leaked the messages. I think that Dana is trying to take another stab at Conor. I think they might have been a lot further from than what we think. Maybe it's true he shut it down because of that, but I don't think they were close to making the deal. I think Dana's really just trying to take a stab at Conor.
I think that before this year, Khabib wanted nothing to do with Conor unless it was just like everything goes black and we wake up in a cage and everything surrounding that moment is gone. I don't think that Khabib had any interest in being on TV with Conor. And given the circumstances of this year for him, I do not think he has any time for that shit. I don't think he has anything in his heart for any kind of shenanigans, any kind of shit talking. He just doesn't have it. And it wouldn't be particularly good TV. I personally don't want to see, like, you remember, what was the classic when it was Chael Sonnen and what was it, Bigfoot? Or whatever that was
I'm not sure.
coaching the show, or I don't remember who was coaching, but I remember they kept behind the scenes, they kept saying, Chael, you need to push him further. You need to keep on talking shit. You need to rattle him so that we get some good TV out of this. I would feel that would be so disrespectful to do that to Khabib, who would not be leading the charge in shit talking the other team.
They wouldn't do that to Khabib, and to be honest, like, no matter who they have, they're going to be doing that. But
yeah, so it would be so very disrespectful, I think, to do that to Khabib. And I think Khabib, I mean, Christ, push him far enough, he might just say, I'm done with this show. I am leaving now.
They're not going to. They wouldn't push Khabib. They would let him do his own thing. Yeah. He's such a megastar. They'd let him do his own thing, especially given how dark that last build-up with the Conor fight was. Yeah. But I'm glad they're not doing it, to be honest. I think it would be too dark.
Yeah, I don't want to see that.
Could be doing, though, I wonder, is if they do a Conor Khabib fight. So Conor and Porier, the Ultimate Fighter season. So just to give a little bit of backstory, as we know, there were those leaked messages last week. Dana freaked out, said it broke the guy code. Conor and then announced and asked Porier to do a charity event completely unrelated to the UFC in Dublin, Ireland, or in Ireland in December. Porier accepted. Dana then said, fuck it, let's not make it not affiliated with the UFC. We'll give you that fight. Announced that he has offered that fight to both fighters. Porier says he actually hasn't gotten a contract. So we're not really sure what's going on there, but it looks like
obviously he just doesn't want to fight.
Of course. Dana is clearly open, at least, to the idea of a Conor Porier rematch, which I think is a fantastic fight. I think it's a perfect fight to make because Conor needs to earn in Khabib's eyes and in the rest of our eyes another shot against Khabib, and I think a win over Porier does that.
Yeah, I agree, and you can't just throw Conor in there whenever Conor's ready. It's bullshit. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see Conor unduly getting ahead of where he deserves to be. I mean, his last win was against Cowboy. It was a spectacular win. Beating Cowboy doesn't at 170. Yeah, at 172. Beating Cowboy anywhere, I don't think, puts you immediately up for title contention.
What do you mean? I think Nico Price should get the 155 title shot. He just beat Cowboy at 170. Oh, never mind. It was a draw. I lied. He didn't beat him. Oh
yeah. Okay. So you know what? They need to have a rematch so that we can determine who gets
immediate
the
rematch.
title.
Immediate for the number one contender, as long as they beat Cowboy at 170.
Exactly.
Though I will say the one thing that really sucks is it always seems to bite Tony Ferguson in the ass, man.
Yeah.
Now Tony loses that Porier fight. He doesn't have a Conor fight, and he has no one to fight to be the number one contender anymore.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame how quickly everybody is sort of forgotten about Tony. And I mean, God, the attention span within the fans of this sport is just so shitty. I mean, hell, just look at the dialogue online with Costa and Izzy.
Who sees a man win his first fight in 5 years and says, "Oh, he should keep fighting now." Sorry, moving on.
Yeah. Roie, that was a shitty comparison, and you goddamn son of a bitch, fuck you. Everybody comment "fuck you, Roie" in the comments.
I don't think enough people listen for that to be a real problem, but I mean,
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna lead the charge.
Hey, if we get millions of "fuck you, Roie" comments in the chat, honestly, I'd be happy. Let's do it. Bring it on, boys. The Ultimate Fighter that I think Adam was mentioning in the chat, in the group chat the other week, he mentioned 3 potential ones. He mentioned the Colby one. He mentioned the Colby and Masvidal, as we know. We know the Khabib one. The Khabib and Conor one, and he said Porier Conor was that third one. I think that would be a really, really fun The Ultimate Fighter season as well. People like Porier. He's a great personality. He's maybe not a huge trash talker, but he can hold his own. and he's just a good guy that people like to listen to.
Yeah, and it ends up with a great fight that everybody wants to see. I think in my dream, I think it would make really good entertainment. I mean, even though obviously they have the fight, the history they have, and it shouldn't happen. But God, how much I would love to see Holloway and Volkanovski as coaches against each other on Ultimate Fighter.
If they did it a while ago, but the thing is as well, it would. I kind of like if you did like a Volkanovski as like your Oceania region against like Europe or against North America or something.
If they're gonna have an Oceanic coach, it's got to be Izzy.
Or you do a double season.
Ooh, and then you get a double fight at the end. 2 versus 2. Amazing. Oh my God. It could be like wrestling. We could have folding chairs in there and 2x4s. It'd be incredible.
Look, if they did Izzy with his assistant coach Volkanovski, and then they did like Jared Cannonier with assistant coach Korean Zombie or something, or Brian Ortega.
That would be a lot of weird glances at each other because they couldn't really shit talk each other. That would be funny though.
It would be. That being said, speaking of Israel Adesanya, there's been a lot of talk since that. I mean, we had a little video on that last week. We spoke about it during the podcast, and we released a clip on it. But Israel's post-fight antics after knocking out Paulo Costa has really gotten the world talking. It's really gotten Paulo Costa talking. He is pissed.
Oh boy, he is doing nothing but talking. How does he have time to train in between all of his shit talking? Jeez.
But he can take some time off. But I will say, all that shit talk seems to have worked, and the promotional machine that is the UFC managed to get over 700,000 pay-per-view buys on this card. Huge win for Izzy.
Incredible.
His stock is blowing up. He is becoming a superstar.
Yeah. He just needs to, continue marketing himself, continue making the right moves, get himself on like a TV advertisement for some cereal or some shit. But he's well, I mean,
Noah, actually,
Christ, I go on Instagram and I just like see pictures on like the whatever Discover tab or whatever the hell of Costa and Izzy like a week after it happened, and these are just like they are getting huge.
No, let me say actually. That's forget the cereal ads. He actually just already signed a new big sponsor in Puma.
Oh yes, I did see that.
Perfect sponsor at the same. And you know what? They released his sponsor at the same time as they did Neymar, one of the biggest soccer players in the world. So clearly he's being treated with respect. He's being treated as a superstar, and they're going to keep on pushing him. I think this Puma deal is going to push his star even bigger. I'm really excited to see the heights that Israel Adesanya gets to, especially if he keeps on winning and eventually gets that John Jones fight. And if he wins we're off to the races.
He deserves everything that he's getting. I mean, how many people can boast 100 successful fights? Who can boast 100 wins? That is insane. And God, also speaking of shit talk, I don't know if you've seen this, the back and forth that they've been having as of late, bringing family into it, bringing parents. Israel Adesanya tweeted to John Jones, admittedly after John Jones mentioned like, oh yeah, how'd your dad say you're going to beat me this time? Because as many may or may not know, Israel Adesanya's dad is very involved in his in his fight IQ training process and has predicted exactly how he was going to beat certain people. He brought family into it. So then Israel jumps back and says something like, John Jones, your mother would have been so ashamed of you. John Jones' mother passed away a few years ago, for reference to everyone. Now, too far? I don't know if that exists against a man who ran over a pregnant woman.
And ran away.
Ran away. And then didn't he come back to like get his Coke or some shit?
No, I think he left because he had Coke or something.
I know he returned to the scene of the accident to like get something out of his car, something like that. So, I feel like there's really, I don't think that there's a line when it comes to John Jones. He's a piece of shit. I have no doubt that if he wasn't fighting in the UFC, he would be granted, a lot of people who are champions in the UFC, if they weren't putting their violence to good use, could potentially be like murderers. I mean, Felipe said it best, actually, when he won his fight. He said in his interview, when they asked, why do you do this? He's like, I have violence in my heart, and I'm using it in the cage.
Oh, it's bad.
That, no matter how chill a lot of these guys sound, you got to remember, they love committing acts of violence.
Not all
It's
of them,
just
but
good that they're
some of them.
Yeah, many of them do. That's why they're doing this professionally. So, you know, it's good that they're using those skills for good, for our entertainment, and not out there.
Let's leave it at that before we accuse people of being potential murderers.
Sure. It's about that violent mentality. These people enjoy violence. That's why they're in a sport where violence is the purpose.
Well, I mean, speaking of violent men, Khamzat Chimaev.
Ooh.
Violence.
A chill. I just got like a chill through my whole body when you said his name.
And if you want to talk about guys who are chill as fuck until the cage door closes, Khamzat is that. In fact, actually, Khamzat's chill in the cage, just a fucking savage. But they have reportedly or are working on or about to book him a 5-round headliner in December.
We don't know who.
Wonderboy Thompson, who rejected it for good reason. He wants to face Leon Edwards.
It's distinctively not Maia, just so everybody knows about that. He is not going to be fighting Damian Maia.
So I think who it's going to be is Neil Magny. I think that's the only person. I think the only other person I can see it being is Michael Chiesa.
Yeah. I
think those two are the two options.
Yeah, and again, I think that Neil Magny's in a good position for this fight. He's not high enough in the top 10 that it's gonna really hurt him if he gets beaten. But if he derails a hype train, it means a lot more to him than it would mean to somebody like, say, a Leon Edwards or a Stephen Thompson, who are both in the top 5. You know, derailing a hype train isn't going to do anything for their stock. But for number 10, it could, shows everyone, hype train or not, there is a top 15 for a reason.
Now, Noah, I have a thought, and I'm really curious. I just want to hear your reaction. What if they put him up against Tyron Woodley?
I mean, I just don't want to see Tyron Woodley against anyone.
But if Tyron already announced that he is coming back, he is not retiring. Look, if they put him up, what does that mean for both of them, right? If Khamzat beats Tyron, you can always say, well, Tyron's been on the downswing, but also you beat Tyron Woodley. Yeah. If Tyron wins, you could be like, he is fucking back.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. But if Tyron loses, it still doesn't. I feel like it doesn't tell me much still about Tyron. Like, God, I just don't like putting Tyron in any
top 5, dude. It does warrant Khamzat top 5 if he beats Tyron.
It does absolutely. The question is how many times does Tyron have to fight in a row in the same exact way that he's just fought before it's like, all right, we're moving you slowly down the top 15, but maybe you don't belong in the top 15 at all.
Well, to be fair as well, I mean, I don't think that Tyron's going to fight this soon after breaking this.
No, he's got a big recovery ahead of him.
Yeah, so he probably won't be back until
that's another interesting hypothetical.
It would be fun, though. It's a very interesting thought.
It's funny when I look at that welterweight top 15, I see I feel like, obviously we need to see him against some more difficult competition, but when I think of Khamzat versus Robbie Lawler, it's Khamzat. Khamzat versus Pettis, it's probably going to be Khamzat. Nate Diaz versus Khamzat, it's going to be Khamzat. And he can easily slip his way into that top 15 now. I think that I think the Neil Magny fight is good. I think it gives us a great idea of where both of them are. If Khamzat comes in there and he handily defeats him, just as flawlessly as he has in his last fights, God, sky's the limit. He's going to be the champion one day. I have no doubt. If I was sitting there either as Kamaru or Israel Adesanya, both like middleweight and welterweight champions, God, I am spending my nights sleepless watching highlights of this man and trying to dismantle him in my head. He would be taking up so much mental real estate. It's got to be terrifying, I have to imagine, to be anyone in a division when somebody like Like I have to with the idea of a John Jones come up where it's just unstoppable train. It's only a matter of time before I lose my title credentials. And I just that feeling of I don't think I ever stand a chance of being champion now because this one
I
guy.
don't think there's no one in the UFC, no UFC champion looks at anybody else in their division and genuinely thinks I can't beat that person.
You have to have that mentality if you were going to be on top. It is a mentality thing. A lot of the time, what separates a champion from an extremely skilled fighter is that mentality.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, still, you gotta. I mean, you need to. I think you need to have that little bit of stress. You need to have that little bit of question because otherwise, that's what's got to motivate you. A little bit of fear. And maybe that's not I am scared of this person, but I'm scared of the possibility of losing my position. I think you do need
so there's always
you,
going to be
you
fear.
can't just have full confidence.
I don't think anyone that's a champion is going to dread the come up of somebody. I don't think anybody is looking down and saying, "Oh no." They're just saying, "Okay, that's my next challenge." I'm excited to derail that hype train.
To go back to my personal hero, I think it was always said that actually GSP before his fights, he was like a nervous wreck. He was walking there almost vomiting, freaking out. Like a lot of these guys, yeah, that mentality, you need to keep it. But I think that the pressure does get to these guys. We don't see it. It's not something that they're going to publicize. But when you see somebody tearing their way, it's only human to be a little bit nervous, a little scared, and work a little harder to prepare for, even if it's subconscious, but in the mind of a Kamaru Usman, I'm sure there is an element somewhere deep buried inside of, I might need to face this guy specifically soon, and I need to prepare specifically.
No, I'm agreeing with that sentiment. I just don't think that anyone's like, uh-oh, I only have the belt for so much longer. I think everyone is saying, okay, I got to prep for this person, but I will beat them. Of course, there's anxiety, but look, Michael Bisping, when he was champion, you can listen to his old podcasts. He would talk about, if I had to face DC when DC was a heavyweight champion, I could beat him. He genuinely thought that. It doesn't matter how crazy you are. You have to have that mindset as a fighter of, I could beat anybody.
You must.
Now, you're going to have anxiety. It's still scary, but at the end of the day, when you're just thinking about it, you're like, I could beat him.
Yeah. But I think that a lot of the time you look at guys with long stretches of successful title defenses and it works. But I think that there's an element of a fake it till you make it. People just, they mask over their anxiety with that overconfidence. And a lot of the time it works out. Usually, you need it. You need that sense to kind of succeed at a champion level. But I do think that it is a little at some degree a bit of compensation for the anxiety and trying to just power through it with overconfidence, and eventually that it goes into real confidence. And the more title defenses you get in a row, the more legitimately convinced you are of your own hype.
I'm not so convinced of your argument. I think that's something that happens a lot earlier in the career. I think by the time that you're in the top 10, top 15, you're not in that mindset anymore. I think you've already faked it. You've already made it at this point. I think that really will start in the first 5-10 fights of your career, and that's the difference between the veterans and the new guys.
Well, now we're really getting into sports psychology, which is an area that neither of us are qualified to.
Yeah, so let's move on to next week's UFC card. We actually have a pretty fun card. This one was a little bit subpar. It wasn't anything too crazy
on paper, but this card I had a lot of fun watching this card. There were some very exciting finishes.
It was fun. It wasn't anything, in my opinion, anything crazy. But look, next week we have an amazing main event. We have Marlon Moraes taking on Corey Sandhagen.
That's going to be
have only one
action-packed.
Marlon Moraes has only the one loss to Cejudo. He's beaten everybody else he's faced in the last 2 years. He's knocked out Aljo. He beat Aldo, Jose Aldo, even though a lot of people think he lost that fight. I actually did think he won that fight.
It was very close. I still actually, I'm just going to throw my quick little argument while we're just on that topic. Jose Aldo still has a place in the division in the top 5 and should continue fighting. That's my belief.
Okay,
comment if you agree.
Right now, but he beat Aldo. I thought he beat Aldo, and he did beat it according to the judges as well. He's taking on Corey Sandhagen. Now, Corey Sandhagen was a big prospect. He was making his way up in the rankings. He looked unstoppable until he ran into Aljamain Sterling. What was the number 1 contenders fight for that division. Aljo won that fight, choked him out in a matter of a minute or so. choked him unconscious, put him to sleep, rear naked choked, climbed on his back, and is now going to be facing Peter Yan for Jan's first 135 title defense. So this fight right here, in my opinion, is actually potentially still a number one contenders bout. When you have Marlon, who's only actually lost to the champion Cejudo, or the former champion Cejudo, has a win since.
That's what a fight
Corey,
that was.
Who has only one loss. I don't see a reason why you don't see Marlon and Corey being the winner of this fight, being the next title challenger for Peter Yan or Aljamain Sterling.
Yeah, it's got to happen after that Aljo Yan fight.
If Aljo loses, if Yan wins, I think you put Corey in there. If Aljo wins, it's a lot more open because Corey has just lost to Aljo. So you could potentially have to give Corey another fight if Aljo wins. But if Yan wins, I think if Yan and Corey win, I think that's the next fight.
Yan is a fighter that I wonder about his longevity in title defenses. I think of all the fighters that I see right now, just based on the killers that are in the top 5 of that division, I give him the least likely chance of defending. Like I think that Aljo is going to beat him. I'm very confident in that. I'm very interested in this fight as to who the next contender will be. But yeah, I think Aljo will win. So that'll bring up some questions for Sandhagen should he win this fight.
I mean, I think I agree with you that Yan has probably the toughest competition, or the toughest top 5 competition in most of the divisions, and is the least far ahead, though he is insanely skilled as a fighter. I don't know who I favor in the Aljo matchup, but I do agree that when you have Aljo, Corey, Marlon, Edson, all these guys, he's going to lose to one of them sometime in the next few fights. I don't think he's going to have a long string, but he might. You never know. I might even favor him against Aljo, to be honest.
Really? Well, that'll be one to look out for.
Let's talk about this fight. Who do you favor in this Corey and Marlon fight? I mean, Corey has got some good movement. I think that because it's a 5-round fight, I'm going to say Corey for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
3-rounder, I'd say Marlon. I think Corey is going to be able to put to tire Marlon out. If Corey was able to get Marlon to move backwards, Marlon cannot put those kicks together. He's not going to be able to be as dominant as he usually is, and he won't have that power going. I think Corey just has to take it to Marlon, and if he can do so, I think he can beat Marlon either by just beating him in the first couple of rounds, or tiring him out and finishing him in late, or potentially just grinding out a decision. But I favor Corey, especially in the later rounds.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Marlon is just such a tough bastard. He's so powerful. Good. And that power and that speed, it's just, he's so dangerous. I have a hard time ever rooting against him. I mean, it took someone with the extremely high fight IQ of Henry Cejudo to beat him, and that was after a round of being handily beaten by Moraes. So I never write Moraes off. I think he's so good that I think he could beat anyone on the right day.
I agree, but I think that what Cejudo did in his win over Moraes is he kind of wrote the script on how to beat Moraes. What he did is he pushed him back. It's the same kind of thing you do against Edson Barboza. If you push them back, keep them moving backwards, and we can transition this into our next fight in the co-main event with Edson Barboza. But if you move these kickers back, who like to do those quick switch kicks, who like to go for those high kicks, they can't do it as easily when they're moving backwards. And that's what happened to Moraes. And both Moraes and Edson are guys who don't seem to have the gas tank to go 5 rounds. They're super powerful, super explosive. But if you push them back in those first 2 rounds, get rid of the explosiveness, get rid of those kicks, they've got nothing left 3rd, 4th, and 5th round, and it's all your fight.
Right. Well, I think that the story of this fight will go. I think that this fight is very much relying on who pushes their way forward first, who makes the first move, and who can start pouring on the pressure the quickest. Because, frankly, I don't think that. I think that in the pressure game, it's going to come down to who can get their groove going the fastest. I think this is going to be such a quick, fast-paced, straight-to-the-action fight. This is going to be this could be a very high-ranking fight in the fights of the year for sure.
I'm not sure I'll call it fight of the year just because I don't think that Moraes.
I'm not. No. Last. There have been some phenomenal fights this year, but I think that this will be remarkable.
No, I think this is the round of the year candidate.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a fight of the year candidate just because I don't think Moraes can go 5 rounds, and you need 5 rounds of action, and I don't think Moraes can last that long.
Well, I think we'll see. I mean,
but what's your pick? Who's your pick? Final pick.
You know what? Just so that we can be contentious, I'll go Moraes.
You're going Moraes. I'll go Sandhagen. Let's see it happen. All right. Our co-main event is also a great fight. We got Edson Barboza taking on Makwan Amirkhani. Edson Barboza, this is his second fight, I believe, at 135. His first fight, it was a very close loss to
Dan Ige.
And look, that was honestly, a lot of people thought he won that fight. I don't remember who I scored that for, but it was one that could have gone either way. But I really think that Makwan has to do the exact same thing that Dan Ige and that Corey Sandhagen, or that Dan Ige did to Edson Barboza, and that Corey Sandhagen has to do to Marlon Moraes. So that's pressure, push him back. Makwan Amirkhani was a very, very, very highly touted prospect. He took a couple losses. He's had some great wins as well. Has really shown some good flashes of brilliance. I think that his fight IQ, his high just talent level, and his growing experience, hopefully he'll be coached well enough to know to push Edson back, and he's going to be able to win. I think it could go either way, but I will lean Makwan if he approaches it with the right game plan. I think Edson will win otherwise, though.
I think I'm inclined to agree with you. And I mean, Edson, he does have quite a few losses the last 2 fights. He's in the last 6? He's 1-5 in his last 6.
But most of those were at 155. Yeah. Now he's at 145.
True, and they were also against granted killers like Khabib and Gaethje. So, yeah, I think I'm gonna give it to Amirkhani. I just think that it's going to be a hard-fought matchup for Edson, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
Lastly, I just want to give a quick shout out to Impa Kasanganay. This man is fighting also on the prelims on next Saturday's fight card. He's fighting Joaquin Buckley. So he's a very, very new fighter. He's only 8-0, but he has a win in the Contender Series in early August, another win in his UFC debut at the end of August, and now just 5 weeks later is fighting again. So this will be 3 fights in I think 8 weeks or so for Impa. Wow. And he's shown
everybody wants. Sorry, go on.
People are really getting hyped about this guy. They think he's a really top level prospect. He's got some good grappling, good submissions. He's got good skill, but he's only 8-0. He's very new. He's a middleweight. Hey, you never know what this guy's going to do, but they got to move him slowly, give him a lot of experience. He's not very experienced yet, but hopefully he has a high ceiling. He's only 26, so we'll see where this guy goes.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. That's certainly one to watch.
I think you were saying something about the fact that he's fighting 3 times in 8 weeks.
Yeah, everybody's looking for that quick turnaround now after seeing just how Khamzat is the winner of 2020 when it comes to the UFC. He's just clearly above and beyond everyone in terms of like total fame and attention gained this year. And a lot of it comes down to that consistently being ready to fight. So everyone's diving onto that, but I think that the real thing that sets Chimaev apart is that he does have that air of invincibility around him. He is beating guys quickly. He is making, he's putting clips out there, quick little people on like Instagram and like, YouTube and Reddit, people on social media, they want to see these quick little like dominant clips where someone is just like demolishing someone. Yeah. So you got to be really careful with the quick turnaround, because if you are doing anything but that, very dangerous. I mean, I imagine if I get punched in the face even a single time by one of these UFC fighters, I'm probably still going to feel that 3 weeks from now.
But no. So the thing is, I will say, Chimaev, yes, I agree. He is the guy. He is the poster boy for this quick turnaround, but he's not the first one to do it. And
of course not.
It started with the COVID crisis in general. As soon as the COVID crisis happened, a couple guys said, "Oh, I'm here in Florida. I'll fight again next week." And Dana was saying to everyone, "If you want to fight again, I want you to fight again. We're low on numbers. We don't have a lot of guys out there. We want to give you guys fights. Let me know, and we'll put you in there." Chimaev was not the first to do so, but I mean, I think especially in this COVID era,
He's the one who's showing these guys how
you have
far
so much more ability. It's because they can't book fights 3 months in advance anymore.
Yeah.
They're not doing so anymore. And for that reason, if you're ready and they're going to book a fight in 2 weeks, they'll put you in there if you say I'm ready for it. Those guys.
I feel like a lot of people, a lot of fighters would be worried at that concept because it's, you know, very high risk to fight at short notice. And, you know, when you could just coast through the year, assuming that people aren't really paying that close attention, and you can just come back when it's all safe. People see just how far that persistent mentality can go through Chimaev, who, you know, is not only, taking these fights on short notice, which a lot of people are, but he's the person who's managed to make a name out of that. That and his high skill level, those two things you need that marriage to kind of reach that level of fame that a lot of these guys going in for consistent, quick turnaround rates are looking for. The dominance is absolutely a requirement if you want to make a name doing that. So, hey, I'm all for it. Just know what you're getting into and know that just that quick turnaround alone, isn't going to be all it takes to bring you that fame anymore.
Yeah. I mean, if you win, you'll do it though. And they'll push you.
Especially if you win handily. Definitely.
Yeah.
Just don't leave a risk that you're going into your next fight hurt in any way.
Of course. Anyway, we had a bit of a shorter episode today, but that we did cover quite a bit. We had a lot that we spoke about. I think I had some good fun. Unfortunately, Adam was not here this week, but we do expect him back next week. There is a slight chance I might have a new microphone next week, which will be really exciting if we have that.
Oh boy.
Other than that, I guess I hope you guys have a great week. Please give the video a like, comment, give me all that fuck you, Roie, that Noah was asking for earlier.
In fact, along with that, everybody give this video a dislike. Tell us about how much you hate the podcast, now we're just how poorly we're doing.
Make sure you sub. Leave us a sub. We have seen our subs numbers have been slowly growing up over time. We're at 21 now. So
think about ringing that little bell too.
Yeah, ring that bell. Get
as soon as we're ready with the new episode.
And watch them and follow us on Facebook, follow us on Instagrams at SmeshCast MMA. And we will see you guys in the next week.
Thanks for joining in, and see ya later.